Well, the landscape of entrepreneurship and disruption seemingly has grown markedly in the last few years, especially when you're obviously talking around the tech sector. Our next guest has seen that play out in his career, even beyond that short period of time. Reggie Fils-Aime is a former president and COO of Nintendo of America, who has written a book about his experiences. That book titled "Disrupting the Game: From the Bronx to the Top of Nintendo." Reggie, thanks for a few moments today.
Absolutely. Great to be with you.
So let me start just in general, obviously with your career in Nintendo, what was it about that industry that drew your attention in the first place?
You know, my journey is really interesting. As a consumer, I was playing video games, starting with my junior high school days, right? The earliest of systems, Coleco, and television, all of these early games. Continued to play different types of games during my college time, more pinball and arcade type games, and had my very first system of my own in the early 90s, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. And while I was working as a business executive during the day, I would be playing a variety of different video games in the evening. So I grew up learning the industry as a consumer. And in 2003, after a long career in consumer packaged goods, in the restaurant industry, in private equity, I received a phone call from an executive recruiter wondering if I'd be interested in a sales and marketing job with Nintendo. And that was the opening of the door for me. And so I knew the industry, having played it. I knew Nintendo was in a difficult market position at that time. Microsoft had just entered the video game space. Sony was the dominant player. And so for me, it was an opportunity to leverage my knowledge and capabilities as a marketer and a businessman, and couple that with the passion I had as a player in the video game space. And luckily for me, that combination came together exceptionally well. Went on to lead Nintendo of America for over 13 years. During some of its critical times of success with the Nintendo DS and the Wii, and now with the Nintendo Switch. So that was my journey and how I was introduced to the video game industry.
So when you look at that industry in general, and I'm in my mid 50s, obviously I remember the early heydays of the industry, and it feels like that where we are now with it, it's almost kind of gone through a little bit of a rebirth over the last decade and a half. Obviously, the early days in the 70s, 80s, as you mentioned, the 90s, but this last 10 years or so just really seems that we have seen just unbelievable growth in this industry in general. What do you credit it to?
Well, you're absolutely right. So today, the overall digital gaming space is about a $200 billion industry. And it's been growing high single digits consecutively for the last 10, 15 years or so. I believe it's due to a variety of different factors. First, you've got wonderful content being created. You've got content being created that is capturing, a broad base of consumers. So this is games like Minecraft or Fortnite, things that are easy to get into and easy to enjoy. You've had fantastic technical innovation that makes the experience more and more immersive, that you feel you're right there in the game. And then you've had all of these different offshoots within the gaming experience, whether it's augmented reality, whether it's innovations in gaming on mobile, all of these different things, which has just made the industry more and more accessible. When I first joined the industry, about 3 out of every 10 people played video games. Today, it's almost 8 out of 10. And so it's been that type of growth that makes it the dominant form of entertainment today.
Yeah, and obviously the growth of the different technologies, and how games are put on smartphones and tablets and so many different aspects really helps make it easier to have it at your fingertips right now.
Oh, that's absolutely true. And it's also the broad variety of different games that you have at your fingertips. I mean, certainly you've got more casual game experiences, but you have games today that maybe 5 years or so were on a dedicated gaming platform. You have that caliber of games today on your smartphone. So all of these different experiences are immediately accessible to you, and it's what's driving the industry today.
You mentioned about working with CPG, and obviously there's so many brands out there that are focusing on the brand, I think more so than ever before. Talk a little bit about that for a second, because that mindset around the brand itself, I don't think it's necessarily a new aspect, but there seems to be more focus on it than we've seen before.
Well, look, I think whether you are an entrepreneur building your own little brand, or whether you're managing a billion, $2 billion, $5 billion brand, I believe it's critically important. And that's why, for me, my early experiences at Procter and Gamble were so grounding for all of the work I do today. Whether I am in the boardroom with the variety of different board positions that I have, whether I'm working with young entrepreneurs, I always ask the critical question, right? So what is the product or service that you're providing? What makes you unique and differentiated out in the marketplace? Why should I gravitate toward your brand versus some other offering out in the marketplace? And really getting specific around what is the position that you own in the consumer's mind, how are you differentiated, and how are you going to continue delivering on that experience over time? I am a consumerist at heart. I always think about brands, whether it's for a $10 purchase or $1,000 purchase.
So the title of the book is Disrupting the Game. So the obvious question is, how has disruption kind of played a role in your career up to this point?
I define disruption as applying a different set of approaches, applying a different point of view to a problem to come up with a solution that maybe hadn't been thought of before, and applying it in the marketplace in a way that really changes the game in your favor. And again, I was fortunate to be doing that in my earliest experiences at Procter and Gamble. As an example, way back when, P&G owned a number of different soft drink brands. So imagine P&G competing against Coke and Pepsi. The company needed to approach the marketplace quite differently than those behemoths in that industry. And P&G had success in approaching it quite differently. Same was true when I was in the restaurant industry. I was the person who launched Pizza Hut's Bigfoot Pizza that took Little Caesars directly head on and had a tremendous impact out in the marketplace. In fact, almost too good, because the brand Bigfoot Pizza started to have a negative impact on the quality perceptions of the mother Pizza Hut brand. So it's this thought of, how do you approach a problem? How do you approach it from a different perspective, leveraging a variety of different experiences, and apply it in a way that really tilts the marketplace in your favor? That's my brand of disruption. And I've been fortunate to be doing it not only in my business life, but in my personal life as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, did any of this kind of come to you as you were growing up? You're the son of Haitian immigrants. Did you see this coming through your parents as well, that has kind of played out into your mindset over the last couple of decades?
Well, I certainly saw a grit and a resilience that my parents displayed, and that was something that was very grounding for me. But in my earliest experiences, as an example, while they were college educated in Haiti, they came to the U.S. not speaking any English. They had to take more menial, lower paying jobs. So when it came time for me to go to college, I had to do all the work myself. I had to figure out what are going to be the schools I could get into, how am I going to pay for it, and apply this type of lateral thinking to come up with solutions. I was able to bootstrap myself through Cornell University. I was able to graduate with distinction. I was able to, get that job at P&G when not many undergraduates get that role in brand management. So yes, the concept of disruption has been a foundational element, throughout my life.
So then, with all that is kind of going on in the world today, and obviously with the economy and inflation and the conflicts that we see around the globe, what's the message that you try and send to entrepreneurs and potential disruptors right now?
Well, so look, it is absolutely true that whether it's from a supply chain perspective, whether it's inflationary pressures, whether it's the challenges of hiring great staff, there are a tremendous amount of disruptions out in the marketplace. And my counsel is you need to attack each of these issues with a singular purpose, a singular approach, and again, a way that will position you and your business to be that much more successful than your competitor down the street. So these disruptions are all around us. You have to get used to it. These are the times we're living in today. So how do you approach your business and your opportunity uniquely and leverage those advantages to drive your own success?